because largely of my own machinations. But I do like to have opinions about I'm going to start this over. Hold on.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Look, sometimes it's not going to be gold every time, you know.
You're listening to Contesting Bloopers.
You have to pull a chainsaw a bunch of times before you can saw through a guy, as my grandfather always said.
Think about what wrestling promo class must look like. Or standing there waiting for people to do their promos over and over again, and somebody just can't get out that second line, and someone has to do dozens of takes of it. So look, if you
or
start...
the first line.
I mean, dude, I did fucking...
Yeah.
I took ultimately 6 8-week classes at UCB.
Right.
And
you
man,
did
watching
the
people do improv, and also being somebody who does improv poorly.
You can find some tapes of like practice promos from NXT online. They will make you feel way better about yourself as a performer in every way.
So yeah, you're listening to Contesting Wrestling, a podcast where I try to represent the views of society at large, where I say... Well, first I try to represent the views of myself when I say shut up while I'm doing an intro.
We are 2 minutes into recording, and Professor Abelson is already interrupting people, everyone.
Well, you're listening to Contesting Dr. Ben Abelson, the podcast.
Starring Dr. Ben Abelson.
How my co-host sucks.
Yeah, Ben.
No, you don't. I mean, you do.
No.
I don't. We're not going to get into it. What's important is that this is Contesting Wrestling, a podcast. My name is Evan Burke.
The wrong Abelson died.
Oh boy.
Oh man, we're right off. We're on Hobarth right off the bat.
I mean, you realize that I know this, right, Katie?
These have to be like,
you know the reference.
That the wrong Abelson died. I don't need to be reminded.
The main feed episodes
he wakes up with this thought every morning.
Yeah, seriously. And sometimes I have a reprieve from my grief when I get to talk to my supposed friends about wrestling for an hour or so. But no, right back in that grief hole.
Well, maybe you shouldn't have pissed Foley off so much
for
at that
those
seminar.
Of us, for those
they wouldn't
of us,
have ran him down with his car.
For those of us
Repeatedly.
still with us. For those of you still with us.
This needs to be a blooper.
I'll shave all this down.
As much as I'd love to keep it, we do need like a real intro.
I will shave this like I shave the prisoners in my basement. For fun is why I do that. You're listening to Contesting Wrestling.
I thought, wrestling? I thought this was the porn episode.
No, I have to do it for real.
All I did was watch porn.
We all have to stop.
Sports entertainment.
What is month 7 of quarantine?
It might as well be. It's
I don't know. I
billion.
stopped counting.
God.
So my name is Evan Burke. I'm a writer. You can follow me on Twitter at Evan Burke, etc. I don't like wrestling. I never have. I grew up in the 90s. I was born in 1984. I grew up in the late 90s. I was the
You
age...
only grew up in the late 90s.
I only grew up in the late 90s. I was the age and I was the exact demographic that the WWE was aiming for in the 90s, and yet I hated it with a passion that is hard to articulate, even for somebody who does words sometimes.
It makes him poop himself.
It does.
I mean, you can't say suck it because then you're playing their game.
No, that's the thing. Well, a lot of this, that's the thing. Just not liking them also is playing their game, which sucks. You have to be neutral to really not play their game, and it's hard to be neutral about wrestling. But the point is that I also respect the opinions of my 3 co-hosts very much, and I respect them as people less, but still a lot. And I want to understand wrestling. So we're about 40 odd episodes in, so I have more of an understanding, but maybe this can be a journey for you, the listener, the 5 people still listening to this after that long intro, who, maybe you guys can get something out of this. And that's what's important. I'm going to kick this over to Dr. Ben Abelson.
Because Evan doesn't get anything out of it.
I don't. It's painful.
I am Dr. Ben Abelson, indeed, professor of philosophy at Mercy College, and someone who enjoys Evan's discomfort.
And likes to interrupt
I enjoy
people.
this podcast. I enjoy hearing from Evan, a wrestling skeptic, and taking into consideration what he has to say about wrestling, and then dismissing it as invalid.
My name is Doc Diamondfire. You all owe me 1,000 squats for that outburst. Come on, I can see you all in the Zoom. All right, there you go. There you go. Okay, y'all do that, and I'll tell everyone about myself. I've been in the wrestling business.
I subscribe to the Gagne
method. There's Ben interrupting people again.
Wow.
That 12, 13 years, that's 1,500 squats for you, Ben.
Gagne method.
The Gagne method.
Gagne metrics.
I can't believe CUNY gave you a doctorate in interrupting people.
In Gagne metrics.
I'm good at it.
Pushing on door frames and, oh God, find that and watch it.
Yeah, it's on the WWE Network.
Right. So, Katie, who are you?
My name is Katie Vella. I am a professional referee of coming up on 3 years. Started reffing in 2017. Joined the wrestling business in 2014. Watching wrestling since 2003. I am also a Twitch streamer. You can follow me there at Over Here Counting. I am on Twitter as RevKatie, Katy. And that's about it for me.
All right. Today's fucking awesome because I was utterly surprised. I had no idea what was coming today. Most of the time, most of the episodes that we do, I'd say like maybe 70% of them are like at my request. I'll be like, oh, this wrestler seems interesting. Oh, this person seems interesting. Oh, I'd like to learn about them. Blah, blah, blah. And then sometimes my cohorts, they'll say, no, you know what? We should do this instead. We should do this person you've never heard of or something like that. And so this came out of nowhere. They were just, Ben started talking about we should do a New Day episode, and everyone was like, oh, of course we should do a New Day episode. I'd never heard of it. I didn't know if New Day was one guy. I was actually genuinely expecting New Day to be a wrestler, just a guy I had not heard of before. Did not realize that it involved I was at least somewhat familiar with Kofi Kingston.
Right.
Yeah, Kofi has been around a very long time. He's the veteran of the group.
Yeah.
You probably saw him in at least one of the Royal Rumbles that we watched, if not somewhere else.
This is so far. So this is the best tag team I have seen so far. This is the best. This is the best. Is it Mr. E or Big E? What's his name?
Big E.
Yeah, formerly Big E Langston, and they cut his last name at one point to just make him Big E.
That's fine.
Holy shit. He's incredible. He's like, what if Brock Lesnar could feel joy? What if Brock Lesnar was a delightful human being?
And get this, in spite of how incredible he clearly is to the non-wrestling fan, he has still yet to be world champion. A fact I will cry out to my dying breath.
Oh, Big E for champ.
Only one of the New Day has been world champion, and it was Kofi Kingston. And he's probably my least favorite of the three. Big E is clearly the standout and should be world champion as soon as possible.
He should be every champion. He should be every champion, and he should walk out wearing nothing but belts wrapped around him. No pants.
I really like Xavier Woods, especially given that he is a fellow doctor. He is Xavier Woods' PhD. He has a PhD in, I believe, educational psychology.
Damn. That's incredible.
Yeah, he runs his own video game YouTube channel called Up, Up, Down, Down, which a lot of the wrestlers go on. He was recently on The Completionist a couple of times. I know you've seen that. Yeah, okay. He did 2 episodes with him. He did one for, I believe, the original SmackDown versus Raw, and they just did one about Mario Kart Double Dash.
Oh, shit.
Because he doesn't just play wrestling games. If you haven't noticed, these guys are nerds. And I mean that in the best possible, this is what the culture is now, deal with it kind of way.
So deep as to take on, brony kind of trappings to some degree, right?
I missed that. I missed the brony influence.
Well, more like they do the unicorn thing. So, I don't know.
They do the unicorn thing.
Maybe I'm expressing my ignorance of these distinctions.
I did. I mean, yeah, the full Dragon Ball costumes after they come out of the giant cereal box and dance around all sexy. He gets so much mileage out of a ska band level ability of trombone skills. That's the best way to say that. Just so
And
listeners,
the
just in case you were like,
gyrating-
that sounds clunky. No, I'm just telling you, just as an expert, that was the best way to say it. Carry on.
Before we get in too deep, I just want to say, like, this is already bringing me so much joy, Evan, that you clearly are able to see how fantastic the entire group is. Because the New Day has, like, unarguably been my favorite thing in the company for, like, 4 years now. Like, everything they do is great. The worst you can say is, like, they've been on top of the tag division, steamrolling everything for years now. But on the same point, look at the tag division in WWE. It's not like there's much there, you know?
Yeah.
But they're clearly the best, and I think even if they did have a good tag division, they'd still be the best.
Yeah, they have consistently been, as they will remind you while gyrating, WWE World Tag Team
Champions.
But they're also now the longest reigning, like within a single reign, the longest reigning WWE Tag Team Champions of all time.
And they've been
The 483-day reign.
They broke some sort of record recently regarding, like, not breaking up as a group, correct?
Yeah.
And, like, good. Why would they? Big E needs to win the title while the New Day still exists.
Yeah, we'll see if it goes that way. But
Big E needs to win the title 2 years ago.
The level of chemistry between the three of them, like just the level of the way that the timing, like their timing with each other, the way that they just, like, I don't know, seem to be, they're just all operating on exactly the same wavelength. They're just absolutely keyed into each other and, like, know how to perfectly. I was thinking about this, how with the tag teams, you kind of need to have, they either have to be clones of each other, or it has to be like a yin-yang situation where they are sort of complements to each other. And this really feels like, I don't know, like the three super distinct personalities all still support one another in a way that is just so fun. That's the thing, it's fun in a way. I was talking about this with AEW versus WWE, where the WWE just so often is not fun. It's just this fucking slog to get through a lot of the times. And this is just like people having fun. I am going to guess that, I don't know, do they have a little more input in their characters? Like, did
Yes.
they
By
Eventually,
now, for
yeah.
sure.
It was a struggle for them, but they got through, and they do have it very heavy input in their own characters at this point.
a lot of the story we're going to tell today is that struggle.
I'm going to guess. I'll lay out my theory right now, and then we'll, as you guys tell me the story, you can tell me if it's true or not. But, I mean, given what Vince McMahon tends to do with any wrestler that is not white, I feel like are these guys like really the first black wrestlers in the WWE that were able to take control of their characters and kind of bring a level of creative freedom to what they want to do? Because it seems like... Yeah. Yes. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
There we
Yeah,
go.
like
yeah.
it may be debatable about little bits and pieces here and there. They're definitely the first. They're definitely the first like black group in the WWE that went this far off the stereotypical path.
And as you see with the clips and vignettes that we had you watch for today, they began on a fairly stereotypical path.
Sure. And that's not. And that's not to take anything away from from black wrestlers in the 70s and 80s and
No, certainly
90s
not.
who were trailblazers, certainly, but just like the way that I have seen black wrestlers booked historically in wrestling up until now has been, exactly. It's very much Vince McMahon being like, thinking like, all right, like there's 2 or 3 characters you can be. That's it. You can dance, you can be a criminal, or that's it. And so,
They were all guests once on Jericho's podcast, and they have their own podcast, by the way, which I haven't really listened to because I have a lot of podcasts on my feed, and I haven't been listening to them because of the quarantine. Anyway, Xavier Woods said exactly that he knew that Vince McMahon had like 3 black stereotypical characters in his head that he could put over almost every black character that had ever been in the WWE. And he knew that, he wanted to avoid being like just the angry black man or the jungle savage, which, had been too many people at that point, of course, for decades. And he said that when they got pitched the preacher angle, he kind of sighed and he went, "Oh, I didn't think of that stereotype when he was listing them." Now, that being said, like Biggie in particular, like Biggie is the son of a preacher, which is almost a loaded phrase in and of itself.
But he literally
was right. Yeah, but Biggie's attitude was, I can do the preacher gimmick. I can do the hell out of the preacher gimmick, and he did.
I mean, it's impressive. It also it really makes you realize, like, wow, there is, if you combine the power of like Southern Black Baptist preaching and the power of wrestling promos, that might be too powerful.
So the first thing that we watched was the end of this match from the July 21st, 2014 Raw, where Rybaxel of Ryback and Curtis Axel.
Fucking hate Ryback.
Yeah,
I really don't like him. He bothers me, and I can't articulate.
You're getting douche chills. It's what it's called. You're getting
not a good
douche chills.
So they Kofi Kingston and Big E are just kind of a thrown together tag team. Kofi's career was in a lull. Big E had come up from NXT a little while before, had like a little bit of a push where he was Intercontinental Champion, but that had fizzled out. So both of them are like in the mid card and deep enough into the mid card where they're losing to Rybaxel. Right, so they lose to
Kofi had been in the mid card for years, kind of hopping between tiers, but never being put in like actual main events. Everybody always liked him, but he was missing something.
He's got a really unique physical style. I'm sure we'll do a Kofi Kingston episode individually at some point.
We could.
But he has like, I wrote at one point, he was like got like an almost Mario style, because he just straight up jumps on people in a way that a lot of wrestlers don't do, and it's great every time. I never got tired of watching him just like jump on someone's chest.
He is an unbelievable athlete.
Yeah.
In terms of like his jumping ability, his balance. Every year at the Royal Rumble, he does some crazy stunt to avoid elimination. That's incredible.
Yeah, like he'll jump from the apron to the guardrail and then walk on his hands back to the ring or something.
He has some of the craziest body control I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So, he's earned the wings on his sneakers.
He really has.
So Xavier Woods shows up at the end of this match, and it's just basically like, you're not going to get anywhere singing and dancing and, doing what the crowd wants. Like, we're not going to ask for anything anymore. We're here to take it. And, like, he convinces them. And so I got the feeling like maybe they were going with Nation of Domination 2.0 or something. Like, it was going to be a kind of militant black thing, but maybe not as explicit, not as overt and obvious as the Nation of Domination was. But nothing happened. Just a couple of months after that, and they had gone nowhere with it.
Apparently they were doing the act on the house shows, working out the kinks and everything, and it just wasn't going well.
So then Vince had an idea. Vince McMahon had an idea, and it was basically what we see in this vignette with Big E. They did one for each member. I picked the Big E one just because he has the best gospel preacher voice.
Oh, yeah. It's incredible.
Standing there in that vignette, Biggie, the preacher vignette, right? Mm-hmm. Is the one we're talking about. He just has so much like fucking poise and like charisma, just standing there talking.
That was definitely the best music the WWE has ever produced in that moment, or at least that I had heard.
Xavier Woods talked about that too in interviews. He said how the first music they brought to them was like 100-year-old, like old slow organ like dirge music, because that's what Vince thinks when he thinks gospel. And they had to explain to him like who Kirk Franklin was, and what that whole genre of music sounded like, because Vince had no idea. He was just never exposed to like new soul or anything like that, because they knew as soon as they came out with like old-fashioned preacher dirge, they would have lost the crowd immediately, and it would not have been their characters.
I will say so when I was young, it's cat assault. Hold on. Excuse me. Damn it. Go. Ow.
That's fair.
Ow.
Keep that in.
We've
When
been
Yeah, I
having
will.
some cat troubles too.
When I was young, from like 2000 to 2005, I worked in rehearsal studios all over the city. Various bands would come in, and I saw a huge range of shit from like terrible 16-year-old metal bands, to like professional like famous like they never did anybody like super famous because they would go to SIR where I never worked, but like a lot of like pretty well known people came through, and I saw a huge range of stuff and a lot of amazing musicians. The most impressive shit to just be in the room with I ever saw were the rhythm sections of those big gospel ensembles warming up. Like the guy, like the bassist and the drummer and the keyboardist would like show up and practice and like just get ready before the rest of the choir would show up. Of course, when the choir showed up, that was unbelievable. But
That's a whole
like,
other story.
some of the most just like mind blowing shit I've ever heard people do was those guys warming up. Like the level of musicianship going on, especially in like modern gospel, is absolutely breathtaking.
So the whole gospel gimmick, they're preaching positivity. And according to them, Vince really thought this was going to get over. Like the people were going to love this, positive message. And in a sense, eventually they did. Like, as you were saying, Evan, the joy that the New Day radiates is a wonderful, infectious thing that, you definitely feel palpably. But that didn't come across right away. They were doing this gimmick, and the crowd hated it. So the first full match we watched for today was the Raw on March 30th, 2015, the night after WrestleMania 31. And I was there in the crowd in San Jose. And so the match is the Lucha Dragons of Kalisto and Sin Cara teaming with Kofi Kingston and Big E against Cesaro and Tyson Kidd and the Ascension. But the reason why I had you watch this match is because the crowd just shits on the New Day mercilessly throughout this whole thing. The New Day had introduced into wrestling parlance a new rhythm, literally, because, and the
That's the sound. They made that, yeah.
They made that rhythm. No one had done that in wrestling before. And they wanted the crowd to chant. Well, eventually they came up with New Day Rocks. But they start doing this rhythm, and the crowd decides to sing along with New Day Sucks. New Day Sucks.
I mean, that is the risk you take when you start a rhythm and you don't give them the words to go with the rhythm.
That's true. And so that it did not work. Strangely enough, three guys running out and saying, "Hey, everybody, would you cheer for me? Because everything's great." Doesn't get over in the mid 2000s. You got to be
the
a little.
mid 2010s.
The mid 2010s, rather. It didn't get over in the mid 2000s either. Hasn't gotten over for a long time.
Now, before we move on, that was the main thing that I wanted to get across with this match. But while we're here, what did you think of the match? Because there is some cool stuff in it.
Oh, with the Lucha guys?
Lucha Dragons.
Yeah,
this was their debut on the main rosters.
I thought this was a really solid match. Actually, I very much enjoyed. I enjoyed all of the high quality luching. Certainly, there was one time where a guy went around like I want to say 7 or 8 times, which was pretty.
It was probably Kalisto.
Yeah.
This reminded me why they almost went with Kalisto for a bit there.
And actually, Sin Cara did a crazy around the world kind of move, which was the original Sin Cara's finisher, which he never was able to hit cleanly.
Yeah. La Mystica, yes. But this wasn't that Sin Cara. This was the other Sin Cara.
But we hear the crowd is really into everything that's happening here. They're chanting NXT.
It's a great match.
They're chanting Lucha Dragons. Except for the New Day. That's the only thing they don't like.
I was confused initially as to why we were watching this because it felt like New Day wasn't in it that much. That was my big complaint about it.
This was just a moment that I remembered them being most hated.
Yeah, despite being
that
good
makes
guys.
sense.
And, Kalisto wins the match by hitting his Selena Del Sol finisher on Victor from the Ascension. The Ascension are another story altogether. They were one of Triple H's kind of first pet projects coming out of NXT, and it didn't work the way that he thought it was going to.
It's like, let's slap a bunch of quasi-ancient Egyptian bullshit all over you, and then have you lose to a bunch of people. We'll have the announcers talk about how they don't like you, and then we won't do anything with you after that. It's going to be great.
That is a weird choice. I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know why you would do that.
They were way over on NXT.
So the following week on Raw, they're interviewed by Renee Young, and they turn heel in this really interesting, subtle way. Where she brings it up. She's like, how do you feel about them chanting New Day sucks? And they're like, it hurts,
Oh, the way he says it was just like she asked, like, like people are saying New Day sucks. What do you think about that? And Xavier's just like, it hurts, Renee. It hurts.
He's great.
It's just so honest. She's like, yeah, it's not good when people cheer that at you. I don't.
We've been working hard on this for a long time. What's wrong?
But instead they're like, instead of like changing altogether and be like, well, we're not going to clap. We're not going to dance. Like, screw you, audience. They just double down on it. They're like, well, we clap so that we won't snap. You better let us keep doing our act, because otherwise we're coming for you. But the main thing about it really is just that they're not going to change their antics at all. In fact, they just dug even more deeply into it.
Oh, yeah, and it was great.
More and more ridiculous as the months went on, and they did it for long enough that eventually the crowd started getting behind them because it was so funny and entertaining.
Well, unlike something like the Ascension, the WWE gave the New Day time to develop and let them fail at a couple of things and then didn't just sink them.
They were behind all the guys in the New Day, is the thing.
Yes.
They were behind all of them as performers. They were never behind the Ascension like that.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of stuff in this interview with Renee that I thought was interesting. Doc, did you catch anything? Like when he played the trombone, was there anything that I know is a particular memory of yours?
I caught what he played on the trombone in the next segment.
Yeah,
one
that's
with
the next
Edge
segment.
and Christian and all of them.
Is that not what we're talking
Francesca.
about?
Well, there was the short interview with Renee Young where they're like, we're going to keep cheering. And then we watched another segment where they're talking to, who are they talking to?
That was
Seth
all
Rollins?
Seth Rollins.
That was all one thing in my head.
Yeah.
Right.
But I do believe what you're referring to is that he plays the Final Fantasy victory theme.
Yes, it is.
He
And,
does,
yeah.
and it's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
I remember watching that and
Yeah.
recognizing it immediately and popping. So our Xavier Woods is a massive millennial age nerd. Like,
Yeah. And
So
he's becoming one of the kings of them.
yep.
So that segment is in September.
Okay.
Of 2015, September 7th. By then, I picked that one because it's just a very memorable and entertaining segment, but also because that was sort of right at the point where they were still technically heels, but they were getting so fucking awesome that the crowd was starting to turn to get behind them. Yeah. It was starting to turn them.
They had started adding a bunch of stuff that became signature stuff that they just didn't have before. And they started like leaving off more of the Preacher stuff, like Woods and his trombone and like just
Francesca.
Francesca, his trombone, and just little things that like a guy like Vince wouldn't understand, but millennials who are looking for small details to latch onto and meme with, they understood.
They also started the whole New Day rocks thing, where it's like, they're not saying New Day sucks. They're saying New Day rocks. It's like a Boo Earns kind of move.
Well, now the crowd says New Day rocks,
Now
and they have for years.
And that's the great thing about it is for a while, people can chant both, right? If they like them, they can chant New Day rocks. If they hate them, they can chant New Day sucks, and they're having fun regardless.
And now it's unanimous. Now it's unanimous.
pretty
After
much.
all these years, it's just completely unanimous. You'd be hard-pressed to find someone that doesn't like the New Day.
I am generally fascinated by like how in wrestling, it's so important to come up with stuff like, oh, you need like a not a catchphrase, but like you need a chant, like you need maybe some sounds associated with you. You need to have like a movement one or two movements specifically associated
like
with you.
They'd be called taunts in the video game.
Yeah.
Often you fill the meter, then you hit the taunt to empty the meter and gain one usage of your special move.
There's a guy in NWA named Eli Drake who recently got, yeah, like that specific way of saying yeah. He got that over.
Yeah. And then he gets it. He does call and response with it with the crowd, and it works. And that's what it's all about. It's all about crowd interaction. You get the crowd to anticipate all of that. And by the way, if you can get the crowd to anticipate your little movements and noises and stuff as what they want from your act, you don't have to take so many bumps. You don't have to do crazy moves to hurt your body. You get the crowd into, the end of all the WWF shows in the 80s was Hogan doing his posing routine. It wasn't, the athlete Hulk Hogan's spectacular display of athleticism. They're playing his song and we're all cheering because he won.
People want to see Adam Cole so they can say Bebe with him after his name. And yet he still takes an idiotic amount of bumps.
Yes.
It seems that, going back to my favorite wrestler. Well, my favorite wrestler may be tied with Big E because I want to see a way more. I want to see everything
Join us.
Big E has
Join
ever
us.
done in his entire career. So I got to see that. But my other guy right now is Orange Cassidy, and what is so brilliant about him is that he has two chants, both of which exist in which are pre-existing chants. He has the Orange Cassidy and freshly squeezed. Freshly
squeezed is fantastic.
And then also has the key movement of the semi thumbs up and all stuff that's all easily reproducible. And yet,
right, you want the crowd to be able to do it with you.
I can put my hands in my pockets. Yeah.
You can't.
But can you do a suicide dive with your hands in your pockets?
Not at all.
Okay, so a little more about this segment. Edge and Christian show up, and they have the battle between Francesca the trombone and Christian's kazoo, which is fantastic.
Oh, which meets a wonderful fate.
Right, yeah. Big E tries to eat it.
Yeah, that was great.
Well,
that was great.
Seth Rollins, I always get I know he's been around forever. Like, I know he was a wrestler and stuff. But Seth Rollins, in part because he looks like Jake Gyllenhaal, but also just he always has this vibe to me of, like, he's actually an actor who's just there studying for a role as a wrestler in an upcoming film. Like, there's a level of inauthenticity to him that even if it's not real, I still feel very much.
Yeah.
That's funny considering his gimmick in Ring of Honor when he was Tyler Black was that he was a big fan of the previous generation of Ring of Honor guys. Like, he's always been kind of a poser. Like, that's the deal.
I always considered him kind of a poser.
I think that's just his deal at this point. Like Ben's saying, he's just rolled with that for so long, all the way to the top.
I do kind of like his dynamic with the New Day, though. They've had a couple of interactions like this, where he's kind of the straight man to their comedy, and I think he works pretty well in that role. You know?
I kind of like his current Jesus gimmick. It really fits him doing like they call him the Monday Night Messiah, and he kind of comes out as though he's the savior of wrestling, and that's always the attitude I got from him anyway. And it's a heel, you don't like it. I don't like it.
So the Dudleys show up at the end of this segment, and the only thing I want to say about that right now is there's another thing involving the New Day and the Dudleys that I'm saving for the premium that I just watched again, and it is fucking uproarious. I'm
very excited.
You're really gonna like it. Okay,
Man,
so now
I have one thing that I wanted to say about the Dudleys. Right before we wrap up, is it really threw me off because I was watching this segment and all these like Edge and Christian show up and then the Dudleys show up and I'm like, oh right, it's one of those. Is this one of those reunion shows? I mean, the Dudleys are here. No, they were just on the roster at that point. That was when they had that comeback. Yeah.
They were on the roster for about a year. They put him in the Hall of Fame. It was a nice little kind of retirement tour.
Yeah,
for
they
them
had that was when they were having their retirement tour, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think they put the New Day over pretty big. That was how New Day.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that they came out and they were like, "You're going to get a tag team match against the primetime players."
Yeah.
They weren't going to get the players to come out and say that.
Okay, so WrestleMania 32, just about exactly a year after that Raw, the night after the previous WrestleMania, where they were the most hated act on the card. And I just love the contrast here. We get to WrestleMania 2, the match between the League of Nations and the New Day, and the New Day are by far the most over act on the card in a good way. And they get this just unbelievable entrance with the box of bootios, because they had gotten the word booty over as a pejorative. Like, you don't want to be booty. Like, that's bad. So the bootios
all right, this is the first thing I've
booty.
not been on board with. I'm sorry. This is I
The bootios, you can't vibe with bootios.
no, that's
with
great.
booty as a pejorative.
Yeah, booty
Okay.
being a bad thing. This is the first I'm hearing of such.
Yeah, I can't vibe with booty being used as an insult either. I just it's,
But hey,
I don't know
look,
where
no,
they
we-
got that.
We here
think-
at Contesting Wrestling are working on another premium episode called Contesting Heinies, where we just rate butts.
Yes.
So we're
Very
gonna
little
we got the
contest.
Rikishi.
We channel our inner
and the
Tina Belcher.
Yokozuna.
Rikishi.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I don't know. There's all these asses in wrestling.
Ass, ass,
So-
ass, ass,
so
ass,
y'all do
ass,
so many
ass.
squats.
Yeah.
Ass! Sorry. I had to get it out of my system.
So
So they actually sold boxes of Booty-O's cereal, like novelty style, like $12.99 a box at FYE and stuff like that. And they sold like you wouldn't believe. By the way, I'm surprised that they were able to get the phrase Booty-O's past everybody, because I don't think Vince got it.
Oh, because I know it's like a hole, so it's like
Yes.
like your butthole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like a box full of buttholes that you're
I
going to
think,
eat.
you know, I think Vince is happy with any kind of transgressive idea
Yeah, that's
that you
true.
can get past the censors.
Yeah.
You know?
I
Like,
think you're right about that.
so, yeah.
No. That's not interesting.
So at this time, the New Day are in the middle of their historic tag team title run, which, by the way, they defended the tag team titles according to the Freebird rule, which is just like a precedent, a rule based on precedent, because the Fabulous Freebirds did it in the 70s and 80s, where you can have a tag team with revolving members. There's 3 of them, and any 2 can defend the tag titles at any time. And, you know, yeah, I don't know if that is cause for like an asterisk by their tag team reign, as opposed to a team where it had to be the same 2 guys the whole time. But
I think there is an asterisk, and then you read where the asterisk is, and it says, using the Freebird rule, there were 3 of them.
right.
That's all. People tend to accept it.
I want them to freebird the world title. Fuck it.
I think
Is that
would be
called?
great.
Is that called?
They did it with the women's title, right? With Lay Cool.
Yes.
Yeah, they did
They
it.
were
They
both
had
champions.
they had the broken half friendship title. Remember, it was a big gag. They pulled it apart backstage. It was so dumb, but it worked.
Is
Which XSW has capitalized on quite
Yes. The tag champ.
Is it
Don't
called-
remind me of the XSW tag champs. You'll never shut me up.
is it called the?
well. Oh, right, Captain Romance is one of them, right?
Shh,
Yes,
do
he
not
is.
speak his name.
Is it called the Freebird rule because 3 people? It's like the 3 guitarists in Lynyrd Skynyrd.
No, there was a wrestling faction called the Freebirds, and their gimmick was basically they were Southern rockers, and they were huge in the 70s in the South.
Freebird was their theme music.
They were one of the guys. Every act at the time that used music said they were the first act to use music, and none of them are right. There's been music used in wrestling since recorded music, but usually in any given territory it was a novelty, and they were like, we're going to come out to Freebird, and they did. And yeah, there was 3 of them. If they won the tag titles, any 2 of them could just defend the titles. They were way over. You know, it was exactly what the culture there was at the time.
So this is one of the rare times where we get all 3 New Day members in one match, teaming against the League of Nations. Sheamus, Rusev, Alberto Del Rio, who we should say as little about as possible,
Yeah, let's not talk about him much. He's a bad man. We'll leave it at that.
and Wade Barrett in their corner, who, Evan, you should recognize from under his other name, under his actual name, Stu Bennett. He is one of the British commentators on Ultimate Beastmaster.
Oh, okay, all right. That makes sense. I do wish they would make more seasons of that. It was a lot of fun.
He mostly got out of wrestling. He does some commentary, he does commentary on NWA Power since they fired Jim Cornette. But he stopped wrestling several years ago to focus on more acting and voice acting because he has a great voice.
It was cool seeing him interact with CM Punk on Beastmaster. That's great. Because it's great because as Evans talked about before, the commentators for the different countries taunt each other.
Yeah,
and it's pretty good.
It's I did not realize you had watched it. It's a lot of fun.
I just saw it the other night.
Yep.
And I was like, oh shit, that's Barrett.
Anyway, we've seen the League of Nations before, Evan. I think you called them the League of Broad Ethnic Stereotypes.
Well, yeah, which is clearly what their deal is, and it just boggles my mind that that's still a thing that we're doing in the mid-teens.
As Doc and I were talking about, as archaic and ineffective as their namesake.
As much as the New Day ended up way more than the sum of their parts, all the guys in the League of Nations were main event level talents that were much less than the sum of their parts when put together like this.
The way I described it is that they're bizarro versions of each other. They're both good, they're both good talent, good talent. I'm not saying good people, like we've established. They're both good talent groups put together, to try to get them over as a group, and it's the best thing ever with the New Day, and with the League of Nations, it just somehow makes them all suck. Well, and it's so weird.
It's also just as a wrestler's character is so important to what they do, and so if your character is I'm Irish,
Sheamus is awesome. Sheamus could be his own episode, honestly. I will defend Sheamus to my dying breath.
Well, that's the thing. In this group, Sheamus's gimmick was I'm Irish.
No, I get it, but I'm just letting Evan know that Sheamus is actually awesome.
Well, what I'm saying is that as a single, his gimmick is that I'm Irish and I'm going to kick your ass because I'm a huge guy and I'm a mean bully and I'm going to win the title. And that's much more interesting because it's a full character.
Yes. Yeah. Okay,
right. The group just does a disservice to everyone involved. It doesn't make anyone look good.
Rusev probably he probably deserves his own
incredible.
episode.
Rusev is their biggest fuck up of the last 10 years. The end.
Totally. They released him in that big round of releases this year.
Yeah, and thank fuck they weren't ever gonna use him right. Now he can go be used right somewhere else.
They just seem determined to make him no more than an evil foreigner.
I'm gonna put it this way, and this might be a hot take, but they were more it's so stupid. Out of him and Lana, the one they were determined to get over and using everything was Lana. And no disrespect to CJ Perry, by all accounts she trains all the time, tries really hard, but there's just not. It's been all this time and there's still so little there,
Reportedly they didn't want them to get together. When they started dating, the WWE tried to separate them.
Well, they're married now.
Yeah, too bad.
I here are my two Bulgaria facts.
All right.
One, in my opinion, best folk music of any country in the EU.
Yo, those vocal women's singers,
she's unbelievable. Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh yeah, and the instrumental stuff is incredible, Yuri Unakov, stuff like that. And then fascinating history of weight training based on using discarded construction items.
Cool.
A lot of stuff if you encounter in weight training, it's called the Bulgarian style. It tends to be the most just bare bones, bleak. You lift a sack of wet cement and flip it around until you're strong. It's remarkable.
I mean, it works.
Oh yeah.
So, despite this being kind of the New Day's big WrestleMania moment, the entrance at least, the League of Nations wins this match. Barrett interferes, and then Sheamus hits the brogue kick on Xavier and pins him. I don't know how far you watched after the match was over, Evan.
Oh my God, the post-match of this is an exercise in frustration, but go on, Evan.
I watched all the way to... I fast-forwarded through bits towards the end, but I did watch all the way.
It was all a setup for the legends, Shawn Michaels, Mick Foley, and Steve Austin to come out and beat up some goons.
So you you put the League of Nations group no one cares about over the New Day, the hottest act in the company, and still one of the hottest acts in the company. Then you bring out the legends and just have them wail on them, and nobody gets to look good. That being said, I will say if anyone was going to take a Stone Cold Stunner, it should have been Xavier Woods. He could take 20 stunners. It's fine.
No, that was great. Kofi Kingston dropping to his knees like, why?
Yes, he sells it so good.
And I knew it was going to happen the second Stone Cold started dancing, because I was like, oh, he made Stone Cold feel feelings.
Yep.
And that's
anytime
cool.
Stone Cold feels feelings,
everyone else in the ring is looking at Xavier like, no, just let Steve not shake his ass. It's okay. No, don't. Oh, here we go.
Oh, no. Oh,
the thing
no.
about the Stone Cold Stunner is that it's never a heel move. He could do it to anybody at any point, and the crowd will love it. I saw him do it to Stacy Keibler, and everybody loved it. He just does this. It's the pop, for better or for worse. And Xavier knows this. But yeah, I'm sure Xavier liked taking a little stunner at WrestleMania. That was the deal.
Damn, did Foley clearly need that hip replacement.
Oh, he couldn't throw his punches without holding the ropes with his other hand to not fall over. And Austin looked to be in fairly well. Like he was wearing a thick shirt to hide his body. And Shawn Michaels could come back tomorrow and wouldn't miss a beat.
This was shortly before he gave up on his hair, though.
I do. Yes. I feel like Shawn Michaels has. I feel like his body has like a picture of Dorian Gray style relationship with his head. Right?
Yeah.
We're just he gets older, it gets more ripped somehow as he gets older, and it just all goes to his face and his hairline. It's just all of the years.
And his rapidly
that's the best theory
eyes.
I've heard.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Oh man.
I do want to point out before we wait, is there another thing?
The last match,
yeah. All right.
The Usos cage match.
I do want to point out that I was watching this match, and I was like, Vince McMahon, of course, just like any capitalist, to pit white working class immigrants against black people who are in the same. They're getting screwed by the same people, but they're just getting pitted together, exploited to make Vince rich. It's a story. Yes. As old as time. This point, or at least as old as the last several hundred years.
I guess like the legends sort of represent the corporations, right?
Right, who then just win,
beat up,
and everybody likes it for some reason.
They just they just come in their finance capital, where they just come in and liquidate all of the goods as we enter the last stage of the cycle before the bust part of the cycle.
Yeah. The thing about having the legends come out and do that is that that's a valid kind of spot at a big show like WrestleMania. Bring out the old guys and have them hit their finishers on somebody. But you don't have to put them over like the guys that just won a match. Like, it could have been, in an ideal world, it could have been a big plus for the League of Nations guys to have just beaten the tag team champions in a match where the titles weren't on the line, so then later they could contend for the titles, instead of immediately looking like fools by these old guys. You could have the legends come out and, like, beat up the heel manager, but they don't really have heel managers anymore, or a comedy figure at the bottom of the card that you aren't trying to build steam off of, or, anything. There's so many better ways they could have done this.
Basically anything except this.
Yeah. This was generally a shitty WrestleMania. Like 32 and 33 were really a low point for WrestleMania. Roman Reigns is a big reason for that. But, I want to cover like a match from every WrestleMania. And I was worried we weren't going to get to this one. Because there's just not much very good on it. But thankfully, it was such a big moment for the New Day that it made sense.
The Booty-O's box makes it worth it.
Didn't we do the Charlotte match off this one?
No, from the next one.
Oh, okay.
The women's title match on this one is the one where they first crowned the women's champion instead of the Divas champion. And it's a good match, the triple threat. But the other matches that we covered were all better. So,
I will say I bet no matches ever had somebody put in kendo stick jail.
Right,
Except
yes,
for this
yes,
match.
that is new.
Oh, that was an
That is
incredible
new.
spot, and I loved everything about
So
it.
this episode thus far has been like the story of the advancement of the New Day. This is once the New Day are on top, what they can do when put in a position where, here you go with another great tag team. Here's 25 minutes. Go. You're opening the show. Make everyone who comes after you think, oh no, I have to follow that. And that's what they did.
The Usos and the New Day had a whole string of great matches. They're, natural rivals. Both of them had their best matches against each other. And this was the culmination of all of that. The Hell in a Cell match at Hell in a Cell 2017.
Yeah. So what did you think of this one, Evan?
I thought it was really good. I got a little more fatigued with this match towards the end, which I'm understanding is part of the rhythm, and I'm trying to get out of the mindset of being like, oh, I'm getting kind of bored or I'm getting kind of tired. That means this match is inherently less good than other matches. Like, that's not to say, obviously, if you're watching, like, a 20-minute match and 15 minutes of it, you're bored, I'm not going to be like, but maybe that was an artistic choice. Because if it is, it's a bad choice. But this was, so there was a point. Sometimes Hell in a Cell, I guess it can get a little too... The escalation starts to get exhausting after a little while. Which is not a criticism of this match.
Especially since they immediately pull out a bunch of weapons when it starts. So the escalation is right from get. Though I love the rainbow kendo stick.
Oh no, the rainbow.
Yeah,
look,
me too.
Don't get me wrong. I'm like starting with like this is the criticism I have overall. This was fucking like once again like joyful. Yeah. Joyful in its creativity and abandon and like just where they were willing to end up. Mm-hmm. And what is the history of the kendo stick in wrestling, real quick? Because there are
good question because I want to hear this too.
30 kendo sticks and 5 trombones under that wrestling ring in the
the trombones are New Day specific. Like that was their personal trombone stockpile.
Francesca 2000 Turbo.
Every trombone that Xavier Woods has ever had has been named Francesca somehow.
Yeah,
it's always
there was the one. There was the one, and then someone broke it, and then they released Francesca 2, and then that got broken. But like Street Fighter, instead of bringing out Francesca 3, it became Francesca 2 Turbo.
That was.
But with the kendo stick, so the first use of it that I saw was in ECW by the Sandman, and they weren't calling it a kendo stick; they were calling it a Singapore cane, which was to reference the fact that if you're in Singapore and you like graffiti or something, they will literally cane you.
Which there was a big case in the mid-90s about an American got caught doing that.
It was directly referencing that. They had a match where if Tommy Dreamer lost, Sandman got to cane him 10 times, and he did. And it was the thing in ECW, and it's a very ECW thing, is that it got Tommy Dreamer over. Because Sandman, very official, like bent him over the top rope and started caning him one after another. And when he was done, Dreamer stood up and turned around and looked in the Sandman's eye, and he says, "Is that all you got? I took your best shot." And Sandman just sort of stares at him, and it's really intense. And then the crowd stopped booing Tommy for being handsome, which they didn't like in ECW if you looked good at all.
And I think they discovered that the kendo stick, what they started calling a kendo stick, which is what it's actually called, just makes for a great weapon in wrestling because it makes an awesome sound when you hit someone with it. And you can kind of wail away at someone with it, and it might hurt a lot, but it's not going to do any real lasting damage. So it's kind of like...
You get some welts and bruises, maybe some contusions, but it's probably not going to break any bones or take out any organs or do anything lasting.
Yeah, it's like the weaponized version of the knife edge chop across the chest.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so we get multiple trombones destroyed. We get the cowbell and the gong brought into the match.
The gong was great.
One move that I really love from Big E that we should mention, it's in the other match too, the WrestleMania 32 match. Here he does it into the side of the cage. He does this spear to an opponent who's standing on the apron that just looks insanely dangerous. Like it always looks like Big E falls on his head when he comes out of the ring. But he does it in every single match, and it always scares me. I guess he can do it safely.
I don't know, man. Chris Benoit used to do that in every match, and he just hit his head.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking maybe Big E should take that one out of his arsenal, but that's his choice. He's also a very tough-looking dude who I bet can absorb a lot.
Well, that's especially I feel like he's so top heavy that I wonder, and
Yeah.
I wonder if all that muscle just like can like bounce off and like protect his head. He really has that. I mean, he is a shockingly graceful guy for like a dude who is a block of a man. Like,
There was a thing on WWE.com once, kind of a personality piece, where they asked several people in the locker room, like, who could bench press the most, you know, if you've been to the Performance Center or whatever of the guys that train, and they compete at this. And with the exception of Ryback, who was just doing the gimmick at the time of me, I'm clearly the strongest, everybody else they asked eventually said it was Big E. Even John Cena, who was like, well, my max bench press is about 495 pounds, but Big E Langston, is at like 540 or something.
damn.
And yeah, he is very, very strong.
So it's Big E and Xavier Woods representing the New Day in this match, which was rare. For most of the beginning of their run, it was always Big E and Kofi with Xavier on the outside. This was really the first big match that they let Xavier take one of the spots. And he does also, like, there's so many cool, innovative tag team moves that they do. From, like, the wheelbarrow fist drop with the chain around Xavier's fist to, like, the Uranagi lung blower combo where Xavier just happened to be on the floor underneath the Uso when he got thrown down.
There is an energy with the New Day where it feels like three friends playing fighting games together.
Yeah.
But they're
which
just
is what they
actually
do.
doing the moves. Yeah, exactly. That does
Yeah.
not surprise me. Yeah.
And let's talk a little bit about the Usos, too, because
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they're
The la-
fantastic too.
The Usos wrestle every match like they have something to prove.
Every
the
single
last-
match.
the last time you saw the Usos, Evan, in that cage match with Daniel Bryan and Bray Wyatt, they were the, like, Usos version 1 when they were just, you know, plucky babyface Samoan guys who weren't stereotypical Samoans. Like, that was pretty much their deal.
Yeah, they'd do a haka.
Right. I
But,
remember.
you know, they wanted to do a haka. It's cool.
But by now, they had, like, gotten this darker, kind of thugged out sort of image with the day one-ish catchphrase that's inexplicable to me. And even to them, it seems like they were actually asked on air, like, what does day one-ish mean? And their explanation did really nothing to enlighten anybody. It's just something they came up with that got over. But once they had that change in their characters, I found they became way more effective. And they're really kind of scary, actually, as heels now.
Oh, they've been one of the top tag teams for almost a decade. They're an illustration of the ceiling that is there in the WWF tag team division, where even if you're on top, you know, there isn't that much further to go. Like, the New Day are the perennial tag team champions, but they also have, like, way more going for them, whether or not they have the belts. The Usos don't really. You know, when one of them gets injured, they both get time off.
Yeah, like they're so connected. They're such like an act together, you know?
They're fraternal twins.
Yes,
they're
are
not identical
actual
twins.
twins, yes.
They've
But they
had
are
some
twins.
trouble in their personal lives recently, especially Jay. That's kept them back.
Yeah, well, Naomi, that one last time it turned out to be complete bull. Was it the last time at
okay.
this point?
Yeah, that was the last time. It's like they pulled over Naomi and they fought it in court. And as it turns out, she was pulled over for driving while black, and they were cleared.
And then she
you know,
came back
people-
at the Royal Rumble with an afro.
Yeah,
and it was
her
great.
giant natural hair. Some people were saying, like, how come the WWE isn't taking any action against these getting these DUIs? And it's like, no, wait, because they went through the court system, and because they got money now, and they're like, no, we didn't do anything wrong. They just pulled us over. This guy pulled us over, and they won. So good for them.
Naomi, who's married to Jimmy Uso, for those. Who
Yes,
don't know.
yes. They're all in the extended Samoan wrestling family too. They're related to Roman Reigns and the Anoa'is and everything.
And I think, despite the fact that they're great as a tag team and they really are kind of inextricably linked like that, Jimmy has always seemed like the standout, like the one who's going to be a big star on his own eventually. But you never know. So, okay, let's get to the end of the match, which is so fucking awesome.
Yeah.
They handcuff the New Day. They like string Xavier up on the post and start beating him with kendo sticks in a somewhat uncomfortably violent scene.
A lot of
The
this
way
is
they-
uncomfortable. A lot of the way they're beating on each other in this whole match is uncomfortable in a really good way.
Yeah,
Like,
so-
it really seems like they're fighting. It seems worthy of this. They're not just having a match in Hell in a Cell. They're like, we're in this cell. We're gonna get violent, and you're gonna deal with it.
They take out Big E and they hit him with the double loose, with the synchronized splashes off the top rope. When Xavier Woods breaks up the pin, it is like incredibly dramatic. Like you did not know that he could make it. It's just at the right moment. His facial expression really sells it well. That was a thrilling moment.
When he gets up in the handcuffs and they start wailing on him with the
Yes.
kendo sticks and he absorbs it and like full on, Puro fighting spirits up and starts fighting back, the place goes insane. Like that's,
God.
those are the moments that you watch wrestling for.
Yeah, that was legitimate fire. He like headbutts through the kendo stick to hit the one Uso and then attacks him with the handcuffs. So fucking good.
Beautiful.
But in the end, and I don't know if you were expecting this, Evan, they get the double Us on the chair on Xavier, and the Usos win after all of that.
I mean, I honestly didn't know which way it was going to go. It did. I guess because it's 2-on-3, the Usos sort of. It seemed like it would be a more surprising win for them. Although I also my whole system for how I would guess who's gonna win is not like informed by any real knowledge of wrestling. So.
That's better though. I think like too often smart
It's
fans
definitely better.
have these ideas of what's going to happen and who are they pushing and like is it time to pull the trigger on this, when much more often I think the people in the bookers are thinking like, oh, who looks like the most powerful of these two right now?
Well,
Like,
historically,
who's the hottest right now?
It's been the New Day versus Usos for on and off for years now. They've traded plenty of wins back and forth. Like, it's at this point where it's like either of them can win based off what the tag division needs or what, the feud needs, and nobody looks worse for it.
Yeah, to the wrestling fans' perspective, if they're coming to your town and it has the New Day versus the Usos on it, it's going to be a great match, and you don't know who's going to win, which is the best way to attract a crowd.
Totally.
So, yeah, I gotta say, this episode really makes me want to do individual episodes on all three members of the New Day.
For the premium, my idea was to do one match each.
Oh, great. Yeah.
So we're going to do Kofi's biggest match in his career.
Yes, the match.
And in a way, the biggest match for both, sadly, the biggest singles match for Big E and Xavier, respectively, as well, even though those were
So
much
far,
lower
hopefully.
profile.
Like, fingers crossed, there's still time for Biggie. There is
I-
still time for him.
Definitely.
I don't understand how anybody with even a basic understanding of like show business and how it works could watch Biggie do a promo and not think like, oh, I need to make sure that I put him in whatever position is necessary to get him to the. I mean, he's got like, he really has it all. He's
does,
got it all
absolutely.
in
He
a
really
way
does.
that very few people actually do.
Well, let me try and like soften it a little bit in terms of like, oh, how come they don't put Big E on top? You got to think of it a little bit in terms of how they think of their business. And the New Day as an entity has on and off been the #1 merchandise seller. They were the first act for a long time to take that title off of John Cena. And they just make so much money being the New Day and doing the New Day, cranking out, plushies and like cereal, of course, there, and T-shirts and just all kinds of knickknacks. And go to www.shop.com sometime and just browse the unbelievable amount of bullshit. that they
Unicorn
print up.
horns.
Unicorn horns. And their attitude is, well, if this act is successful like this, why do we sacrifice it to try and make Big E have extended ended feuds with like Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman and all of
My
these
thing
guys.
is, they don't have
know.
to sacrifice it though. They can keep the New Day and have Biggie be the champ. They kept the New
absolutely
Day
should.
and had Kofi be the champ. So
That
I mean,
was
my
quite an
dream-
anomaly, though.
My Dream Mania main event would have been Kofi keeping the title and then Big E winning the Royal Rumble and doing Kofi versus Big E with Woods as the ref.
I believe that was my idea.
Was that your idea? One
it
way
was
or
totally
another,
my idea. And
that's what I would want to
yeah.
see.
Well, it's one of these things
I'll
where,
give it to you.
like, we were waiting for Big E and or Xavier to turn on Kofi once he was the champion, and they didn't do it. They kept
No,
them
they shouldn't
together.
ever turn on each other.
Well, and that's, Katie, you made the point at the beginning of the episode that they have lasted longer than pretty much any unit in wrestling history. And that's cool.
Alrighty, this has been Contesting Wrestling. Thank you so much for listening. You should follow us on Twitter at ContestingW. Let us know, what your feelings are about this or anything else, just like what's
Biggie
going on
Langston.
with you. Yeah.
Biggie for Royal Rumble 2021.
Yeah, give us suggestions too on like anything you want to see covered on future episodes. If there's like matches featuring wrestlers that we talked about that we missed, let us know about that. You can, if you like this, you should follow us. Oh, okay, all right. Here's the deal with the Patreon. So we put out one bonus episode every week on Patreon. It's $5 a month normally. However, in this day and age, during this uprising against police violence, there are much more worthwhile places for you to send $5. So we are going to put links to places you can donate your money down there. And if you donate your money, donate $5, take a screenshot of that receipt, send it to us on Twitter, and we will send you a link to the premium episodes. If you can donate and also give us $5 on Patreon, hey, that's great. I'm not going to stop you, but nobody should have to make the choice. There are people out there on the front lines who need your money, and so that's an option that's open to you.
Give them your money, not us. I mean, give both of us of us.
If you
your
have
money.
multiple $5 is...
Yeah.
Yeah. We just
Put
don't want
them
it. We
in
just don't want
various
you to
places.
struggle with that kind of a choice. We all, we all have our causes that we support.
This has been Contesting Wrestling. Thank you. We love you.
Bye.